Okay, so welcome all to the Advanced Zoom. The purpose of this is to just cover some advanced features that are just some really great tips and tricks that can really elevate the interaction of your Zoom meeting. My name is Mallory Alvarez. I am the Canvas support for instructional, for faculty and staff. I have my contact information posted. Just to go over some quick norms, please make sure to mute your mic. Please use the chat box for any and all questions. We really hope to address your questions, not just at the end of the presentation, but throughout the presentation as well. And also, please make sure that you've typed in your full name and Alamo email in the chat box, or to make sure that it's reflected in the meeting. If it's not reflected, be sure to click on Manage Participants, click on your name, click More, and then it should open up to allow you to retype your name so that way it is reflected. So this right here is just pretty much the agenda for today. So these are going to be the items that we're going to be covering. First one is going to be the remote control access, then we have the whiteboard, then we have annotations, polls, breakout rooms, and Zoom reports. So just wanted to give you guys a nice full picture of what items we will be covering today. Okay, so the first one, and this is my favorite one, this is the remote control screen. The remote control feature allows you to take control of another participant's screen in a meeting. You can either request remote control of another participant's screen, or the participant can give control over to you. So I did this little YouTube video that kind of just streamlines this entire process. So I'm going to play this for you to make sure I share my sound. Let's see. There it is, share computer sound. Okay, I'm gonna make my screen a little bit bigger. Here we go.
The purpose of this video is to highlight the share options that are available to you when you are hosting a meeting. For this example, I have a student here who is sharing his paper. One of the options that are available to you as the host is Request Remote Control. So if I needed to help a student or a fellow colleague, and I find it easier if they just let me control their computer, Zoom allows this to happen. I would click Remote Control, I would send in my request. My participant would then be given an option to allow me to control their screen. Once the participant has approved this, I can now control the screen. I could even go in and manipulate the text by highlighting or adding any comments for that student to view. When I'm controlling the screen, this also can extend to their desktop as well as any websites. So if a student is having issues on Canvas, or say you're trying to help out a fellow instructor with their Canvas course, you can request control of their screen, and you could go in and view and manipulate any of the items as if you were on their computer in person. Once you are done, you can stop participant sharing, or you can give up remote control.
So this was just a nice short little video that kind of just walks through that whole process of what it would take if you wanted to share your screen and request a remote control access. And you know, this is really great option, especially if you're trying to help out a fellow colleague, and you know, and they're just not understanding where you're, you know, like it's right there, it's right above this, and they just not seem to find it. And this can really help with that process, and the same with the student as well. So another great feature that's available in Zoom is the whiteboard. And the whiteboard only appears when the host initiates. So as the host, you would have to click the shared screen button, which is a little screenshot of these steps right here. And when this button appears, you are then able to share a whiteboard. And when you share your whiteboard, you are going to see a display of an annotation toolbar appear. And this annotation toolbar are going to be the tools that are available to you to write on this dry erase board. And not only do you get all these great annotation selections, you also are able to get your participants to add to the board as well. So you could have your participants adding their annotations just like they would a dry erase board. And if you had all these great, annotations for like a math problem that you worked out, you could then download and save. Now this YouTube video that I created down below not only walks you through opening up that screen, but it also talks a little bit about what each one of these tools can do for your whiteboard and how in different ways you can utilize your whiteboard when you are sharing your screen. And it also gives a real feed time of someone writing back on the dry erase board. So here's my little YouTube video.
Another great feature I want to point out is the whiteboard. So when you click to share your screen, the whiteboard option will automatically appear. I select the whiteboard and I will then click share. Now this whiteboard works just as any whiteboard normally would. You can write, you can even do spotlights, and this option is really good if any instructor needs to work out a problem in real time. Another great feature about this whiteboard is that any of your participants who are in your Zoom meeting can add their own annotations to your whiteboard. So if you start a problem here and you can easily copy and paste any text of a math problem, as you are working out the math problem, you can call upon anyone who's participating and they would have the option to annotate the whiteboard and add their own responses to this whiteboard. You're also able to undo, redo, clear all drawings, or clear the viewer's drawing. So I'm going to click clear viewer's drawings. And now the only drawing that is left behind are the ones that the host had made. You're also able to save this whiteboard and click show in folder. And here you can see the whiteboards that have been saved from any of your Zoom meetings. Once you are done with this feature of annotating, you would click this little red X here, and then you can stop share to remove the whiteboard from your Zoom.
So just as I stated, it was just going to be a quick little video on utilizing whiteboard, and this can be really great too if you're having those staff meetings where you're trying to brainstorm some ideas, and then you can download and email out those annotations from the whiteboard for anyone who may not have been able to make that meeting. So that's a really great option. Now the next thing I want to get into is annotations, but before I do so, Amanda or Julie, were there any questions in the chat box that really need my attention?
Not at the moment. I mean, Ronnie asked a good question, but I just finished answering it. He asked if we can use like a device, like a stylus, while you're using the whiteboard. He suggested like an Apple Pencil, so that's more like a device. But and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just said that as long as it's compatible with the device that you're using Zoom on, then yes.
Yeah, so you are, the effectiveness of using the whiteboard is going to be a little tricky if you just tried using a mouse. So keep in mind that with the whiteboard, you're probably going to want to use a device that's going to be like an iPad or maybe a touch screen where you can use a stylus, a Windows Surface, because you have to keep in mind that Zoom was created for business. It wasn't really meant to be used for education. So you have to keep in mind that this was, used for presentations, and they had these, iPads, and they weren't really, so you are going to be coming across a little bit of trickiness if you try using your mouse. Great question. So this will lead me to the annotation settings. So this is some really great things, is that you can allow to or disable participants to add their annotations, and you can do this live. You don't have to go and set it up in your settings. So I took a little screenshot. So if I was the host, and I share my whiteboard, I see my host toolbar, and right here I see these 3 dots that say more. And when I click on these dots, it then allows more options for me. And one of the ones are allow participants to annotate, show the name of the annotators. And if I click on these items, it would then reflect that in the middle of the whiteboard and say, okay, guys, now I'm gonna post a new problem and I'm gonna wanna work this one out for you in live time. And then I can actually click more again and then say, don't allow participants to write on the dry erase board. So I don't have to reshare or, you know, set up my settings before the meeting. So this is a really great feature that you can turn on and off during your Zoom session. And I just wanted to point that out, that that's a really great tool that you can utilize. Let's see. So this section right now, I just wanted to focus on what each one of these items does. And we have the spotlight, and I can use my spotlight to show the spotlight here to give you a nice little idea of what that spotlight looks like. And then of course, whenever you click on the mouse, what it does, it allows you to jump back to just using your pointer. So that way you're not accidentally writing all over your screen. And I'm not going to read all of these word for word, but this PDF that hopefully everyone has downloaded from the chat box, and if not, I will send it out again at the end of the Zoom meeting. This kind of just breaks down what each one of these devices does, and it's just a nice little, you know, glossary there for you to look at. And now I'm going to transition polling into Zoom. So before I do that, does anyone have any questions that need to be addressed, Julie or Amanda, dealing with the annotation section in our presentation here?
Not in the chat. I don't know if anybody wants to unmute and ask questions of Mallory at this point.
So I had a question. So my monitor is a touchscreen monitor. So does that mean that when I do the whiteboard that I can use the touchscreen to draw on the whiteboard?
Yes, as long as you click on the annotation tool. So if I go back, I would have to click on the draw, then draw, and then, you know, and so forth. So yes, you could use your finger to draw as long as you initiate that annotation tool to be used.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just drew on it with my finger, Ronnie, because I have a touch screen. So I just drew that squiggly blue line with my finger.
Well, where can I buy that art? Where can I buy that? Is it how much does it cost for me to get
The
that?
bidding will begin after the Zoom session.
After the Zoom
over,
session.
so
Okay, good.
there you go.
I'm in.
5 million.
There we go. You guys are so silly. Okay, clear all drawings. All right, so now we're going to move on to polling in Zoom. So this is a really great feature that the host can use to create a single choice or multiple choice polling questions. The host can create and launch polls, share the results to the participants, and download the report later on for themselves, which can be accessed in Alamo Zoom. Polls are anonymous, and they're a great way to engage with students. And then we have a pro tip, which is to set up all your poll questions before the meeting, just so that way there's no, you know, lag in between of you trying to copy and paste in real time. So these are the steps that are just written out on how to create a poll in your Zoom session. And I'm not going to read all of these for you, but we have this great video here that was created by Amanda, who is here in our Zoom meeting with us. So I'm going to play her video, and you'll see that all of these steps that are printed out before you are going to be enacted in real time here. And then also something else, note you can create a max of 25 polls for a single meeting. And then after that, you got to delete some and start over again. So I'm going to play this video for you.
In order to create Zoom polls, we actually have to do so from the alamo.zoom.us website. Once you're here, sign in with your ACES credentials, and you'll be taken to your Zoom profile page. On the left-hand navigation bar, we're going to click on the word Meetings. This is where we'll set up our Zoom polls. Click on the particular meeting that you would like to set up a poll in, and scroll down to the very bottom. And inside this gray outline box, it'll either show you the polls you've created, or like right now, it says I haven't created any polls. So I'm going to click Add. Your first option is to add a title. This really helps you organize your polls. If you don't add a title, they'll be generically called Poll 1, Poll 2, Poll 3. Imagine if you have 12 different classes and you're on Poll 12, you might not remember which poll you actually intend to use in that class setting. So I like adding a little bit of information, maybe a topic or a date or a specific class section. The next option is about anonymity. Now, to be clear, the Zoom polls that are displayed to the actual students in a class or during a meeting, they are all anonymous in that meeting. This only refers to if when you pull a report after the meeting as the host, as the instructor, do you want student names to show up with their answers? This could be a very powerful tool if you're trying to check in with your students' understanding and see who's understanding the material versus who's not. So I prefer to leave this unchecked. Now we can type in our first question. See, we have 255 character space here. I have a pre-made question, and then I have to select whether I think this should be a single choice or a multiple choice question. This is a little confusing, but it actually refers to the answer choices. Is there a single answer that's correct, or are there multiple answers that are correct? Kind of like check boxes. So I'm going to keep it as a single choice question, and that means there's only one correct answer. Now notice that my answer fields actually have a lot of space too, 255 characters for this as well, so you can type really long answers here. I'm just choosing not to right now. And you can have up to 10. Now, if I'm not happy with my question, I can delete and start again, or I can add a question, or I can be done and hit save. Since this is a warm-up, I'm going to add another question here. And I'm going to choose this to be a multiple choice question because maybe I'm writing these answer choices in different formats. And so that means there could be multiple correct answers. Again, you have the 10 answer choice options, and now I'm going to say I'm done with my warm-up polls and I'm going to save. If I look at the bottom of my meeting screen now, it says I have one poll created. It tells me the name of my poll. And there's only one, even though I entered in 2 questions. If I hit the drop-down arrow, I can see the 2 questions that I created. I can edit them if I would like, and I can also delete them if I'm not happy with these questions. Or if I'm worried that my Zoom meeting will become too cluttered, I can delete them after I use them. I also have the option to add more questions if I'm trying to set up more polls for that particular class session, or maybe for the future, just have them ready to go.
Okay, so that was just a short little video that can just really walk you through the steps it would take in creating a poll ahead of time before and not during the Zoom session. So the second part I want to talk about is launching these polls. So you've created a Zoom poll, you shared it out with the class, you're asking them to participate, now what? So again, these are some screenshots and written out steps that take you from point A to point B in launching a Zoom poll. And now I want to go back once again to my wonderful, wonderful coworker Amanda and her amazing video of walking through launching a poll in a Zoom session. Oh, it's because I have my spotlight on. It's not letting me play. Let's see what's going on here. There we go. Gotta do this the old-fashioned way.
let's go over how to launch and share results for Zoom polls. On the bottom toolbar, you'll see the word polls, and when I click on it, it brings up this window. In the top left, you'll see the title of my poll, if I put one. If not, it'll just say polling 1. This drop-down arrow, when clicked, will bring up all of my poll options if I've created others, which is why the title sometimes helps, so that way I can kind of keep those straight in my mind, which poll I want to use and when. Then there's also this edit button in the top right. I would avoid using that in real time if possible, because it takes you back to the Zoom web page, and it can be a little cumbersome to navigate between the web page and your Zoom meeting in real time when you have participants in the meeting. We also see the questions I had typed up from the last video. At the very bottom, in blue, it says launch polling. So when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and click that. And what's cool about Zoom is that they make it very clear to see whether or not students or participants can see the polls or what's on their screen at that moment. So when you see this green, that means that your participants are seeing the poll. And it also says in green, attendees are now viewing the questions. You have a timer in the top right-hand corner, and underneath that it tells you how many people have voted versus how many are in your meeting. You'll also see these little bars right here. They'll start to turn blue and change almost like a bar graph in real time as participants are answering the questions. You'll start to see the percentages change as well, how many people are selecting that particular answer. Same with the second question. When you're ready or you feel enough time has elapsed or enough people have voted on the correct answer, you can end polling. At this point, you'll notice that the top bar is turned black. Polling is closed and nobody can view the questions anymore. The host is the only one seeing the screen. So you're the only person that will see the percentages of what participants have picked for these questions. So at this point, you have an option. You can either relaunch the polls and have everyone try again, or you can actually share the results. And again, it turns green to show that I'm sharing with the attendees and everyone can see this. And what's nice about this from a pedagogical standpoint is that Zoom doesn't pick a correct answer. You might be able to tell by the bar graphs if most students are picking the correct answer, but in general, it doesn't show them which one is right. So it gives an opportunity to have a discussion. If, for example, you see several of the students, like maybe 50% or more, are choosing the first answer versus the correct answer, which is the last answer. So it gives an opportunity for talking points. When you're ready, you can stop sharing results, and then you can exit out of this screen if you're done with the polls, or as I stated before, if you want to relaunch and allow students a chance to try these questions again, we can hit relaunch. It'll just quickly ask you if you don't mind that it clears the existing poll results. You'll hit continue, and the screen will look the same as it did before. So when you're ready, you can exit out of this and move on with your lesson.
Okay, so that was just a short little video that just really walked you through launching a poll. So real quick, take this time, are there any questions?
I have a question about chat, saving a chat, I guess, string. I believe if you set up your meeting originally and you have a default to save to chat, when that's recorded, they have a separate file for chat, for the chat.
We can barely, I can barely hear you, but if I think I heard you correctly, it's, is there a way for you to save your chats? And that's yes. If before you set up the meeting, you would edit the meeting to have all the chat messages saved. And when you do record, and you could find, so you would say if you do that, you record your meeting, you end the meeting, under recordings where you can download those files, one of those would be the chat.
Thank you.
Okay. Guess I'll move on to breakout rooms. So what are breakout rooms? Great breakout rooms are just another great feature that Canvas provides that really allows you to be engaging in your class. So the host can create, close, and recreate many rooms at any time during the meeting. And
Valerie, I'm sorry. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Debbie had a question about polls. Is there a way to export a poll into the other classes? And Amanda responded by saying, I don't believe there's a way to do that, but she's looking it up. Do you know anything about
other
copying
classes?
polls from one
Like,
meeting to another?
yeah, like creating like something in one section and then transferring it to your second section.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know if Zoom has that feature where you can pull from other polls that have been previously created. That would have to be something we'd have to explore. That's a really good question.
I'll put the link to polls from the Zoom Help Center too. The Zoom Help Center is super easy to navigate. It has a powerful search tool and it's got a lot of videos. Maybe you can find something there, Debbie.
That was a really good question. Okay, so just testing one more time. Are we good to transition into breakout rooms? Okay, so rooms, another great way to make your Zoom meeting more engaging by getting students or staff to break in and discuss in smaller groups. So these are the steps that you would take to go onto your breakout rooms. And the first thing would be that you would click on the host toolbar. Again, only if you are hosting can you trigger this effect in a Zoom meeting. You would click on these little icons, like little 4 squares, and then that would bring you to your breakout rooms. And then it's going to ask, do you want to have this done manually, automatically, how many breakout rooms? And then once you make your selections, you would then click create. And then it gives you some other options on how you want this to be run. You can time how long they have together. You can have it to where it's going to count down for those breakout rooms to let those people know, oh, we're getting close to down to our last 60 seconds to kind of wrap everything up. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to play again the YouTube video that kind of walks you through all these steps that have been written out. And here's a nice nifty tip before we get into that video, that say if a student joins Zoom using their browser versus like downloading the Zoom app to their computer phone, you're not going to be able to add them into a breakout room. So what you can do to problem solve that is have the main meeting area become its own breakout room. So a lot of students, what they like to do, they like to join Zoom on their cell phone. And sometimes, they're not going to download the app. They're just going to just click on the link and just join as a, without having that due process. And, some students are not going to have access to a laptop when this is occurring. So that might prevent them from being pulled into a breakout room. So this is just a nice little tip here to prevent that from happening. We're like, okay, so we don't want to, not include you. We'll make the main Zoom meeting become its own breakout room. And now, without further ado, I'm going to play this little video for you that will walk you through.
First, let's review how most likely label. First,
and I just want to point out that we have Amanda once again walking through this amazing video, and she has also spotlighted each one of our cats, her cat Moxie and Gage, and then my cat Mary Shelley and Hemingway. So definitely a wonderful shout out to Amanda for allowing this for our cats to have a chance to shine here. So I'm going to play the video.
Let's review how to start breakout rooms. When you go to your toolbar at the bottom of your screen, we're going to click on the icon that looks like 4 squares and is most likely labeled breakout rooms. Once we click on this icon, our first choice is how many rooms do we want to assign the participants into? In other words, how many rooms do you want to divide everyone into? I have 4 participants, so I'm going to divide them into 2 rooms. Then I have a second choice. Do I want to do this automatically or manually? Manually means that I will decide who goes into each room myself. But the good news is if you choose automatically, not only does it randomly assign participants into different rooms, you can still move people around if you feel the need to. And at the bottom, it tells you about how many participants will be in each room. Since we had an even number divided in evenly, we have 2 participants per room. So I'm going to click Create Rooms, and see it tells me who ended up in each room. Now, Gage and Moxie are siblings, and so are Hemingway and Mary Shelley. So it might not be good to keep them in the same room. So I can take Gage and exchange him with Hemingway. And now they're separated. I could also have just chosen to move Gage into breakout room number 1, and then you would see that there's 3 participants in breakout room 1, whereas there's 1 in breakout room 2. I'm going to move him back. Another option that you can do with breakout rooms that's kind of cool is that you can rename the breakout room. So if you needed to rename groups based on names that they've already come up with for a fun project, or if you just wanted to know who you sorted into different rooms, you can rename the rooms here, or you can keep them as breakout room 1 and breakout room 2. The students will see the name of their breakout rooms, so make sure you name it something that you don't mind them seeing as well. You can also delete the breakout room if you've made too many, and it will reassign the participants. Now, before we move on, I want to show you some of the options. We can move all the participants into the breakout rooms automatically, which means they will go there as soon as you hit go. Make sure you've set all your instructions if you choose this option. Second, we can allow participants to return to the main session at any time. I like to keep this checked so that way students can come back and ask me questions if I stay in the main room. Breakout rooms will close automatically after blank minutes. You can choose to set a time frame for your breakout rooms when you want students to be pulled back into the main session. The good news is you can always add time to this if you realize students need more time as they're working in their groups. And that's what this second box is for, notify me when time is up. And there's the countdown after closing the breakout room. You'll let participants know that if you close the breakout room, they'll get some sort of warning before it closes so they can wrap up their conversation. In this case, it's 60 seconds, but you can change that as well. Last but not least, just to show you all the options here, you can also recreate breakout rooms. So let's say you already sent these participants into their breakout rooms, but you have a bigger class size than I have. I only have 4, so it's pretty easy to rearrange. But if I had 30, I might not want to do that myself. But I can recreate the rooms, and again, I can do it manually or automatically, and it will reshuffle everyone. So I'm going to do that right now just to show you. So see, now we see that Mary Shelley and Hemingway have changed places here in the breakout rooms. Now, when you're ready to go, you click Open All Rooms. Now, after you open the breakout rooms, your participants will either be sent to those rooms automatically, or I didn't check that box, so all of my participants hit join when they were ready. As you see, Mary Shelley hung behind. Maybe she had a question for me, and then when she's ready to, she'll join the breakout room as well. So now, this is what it looks like from the instructor view. Everyone's in a breakout room. You're the only one left behind in this main session. As you can see, my name is the only thing left behind. But what's cool now is that you can go join breakout room 1 if you want to join in on their conversations, or you can switch to breakout room 2. Another thing you can do that's a really cool tool for breakout rooms is down here where it says broadcast a message to all. If you click that button, you can send your students a message that will appear in all breakout rooms. Maybe you're telling them, hey, only 10 minutes left. But it'll show up in all of their rooms. If you want to pop in on your students and see how they're doing in the other breakout rooms, all you have to do is hit join. It'll ask you, do you want to join breakout room number 1? And I'm going to select yes. Now I'm in the breakout room number 1 with Mary Shelley and Moxie, and I can see how they're doing. I can also check on their chat and see if they have any questions. If I want to return to my other breakout rooms or go to the main session, I can either click leave room, go back to the main session, or I can click on breakout rooms and leave that way. I can either click leave, or I can go join breakout room number 2. And now that I've visited both breakout rooms and I've checked in with all of my participants, I'll leave the room to go back to the main session. Be careful here that you don't click leave meeting or end meeting for all. It's happened before. When you're ready to end your breakout rooms, all you have to do is click close all rooms, It's giving my participants that 60-second countdown, and then everyone will return back to the rooms and you'll be ready to continue your session as normal.
Okay, so that was just a really great video with some really cute cats there for you. Some things I wanted to point out about the breakout rooms is that when your students or faculty are in the breakout rooms, they're going to be able to turn their video on or off. They're going to be able to unmute themselves, and they're also going to be able to use a chat feature within that breakout room. So say as the host, you started this Zoom session with all the participants' mics muted, and you had everyone's videos turned off, and say you even disabled the chat. Well, when they go into that breakout room, those features are going to be able to be put into use just while they're in the breakout room. Soon as they join the main session, all those settings you set up will then click back into place. So even though they were sharing their video, turning it on, and chatting to each other, and even had their microphones on speaking, soon as they go back to the main session, everything's going to fall back into place on how you had it. So that's just something you can keep in mind. Also, what's really interesting is that if any of the things that were sent in the chat room can only be sent to those who are present in the chat room at the time it was sent. So for example, if Julie and I were in a chat room and I sent Julie an attachment, and then say Amanda joined in to see how we were doing, Amanda would not be able to see the things that have been going on in our chat box. Only Julie and I would, because the chat box feature, there's going to be evidence, a trail of conversation to be seen by only of those who were present in our breakout room. So I might have to resend that PDF to Amanda because she wasn't there when I sent it out originally in our chat room. And also when you join the Zoom session, anything that you sent to everyone in the breakout room is not really going to be sent to everyone in the main session. So that's also some things to keep in mind. Before I transition to recordings and recording layouts in Zoom, I wanted to ask, were there any questions, Amanda, that need my attention here?
It could be good to address a couple questions. I've answered them in the chat, but I think it's starting to get a little wordy, so I want to make sure that everybody can see their answer. So let me just double check. So one of the things we wanted to go over was, and Julie, should we address this now, what Caroline was asking about? Yeah, okay. Maybe students using the app versus joining from the link, like using the browser Zoom versus using the app Zoom. What does that exactly entail and mean?
Okay. Now, I've never really been able to see a big difference on my side, but I do know when students use the app versus the, using like a laptop, they're not given the same accessibility to all the features. So I know when I was using Zoom on my cell phone, I really wasn't able to use the annotation bar at all. So if you have a student who's accessing Zoom through their phone, even if they download the app doesn't allow you to annotate in a Zoom meeting. So that was one of the big things that I've seen. Was that some of the questions that she was asking, or did I get that wrong?
You didn't get it wrong, but I actually think I have to clarify what I said in the video. Because in the video, I said that students could not go into breakout rooms if they're not using the app. And most people think app on the phone, right? Because that's where we use the word app. But Zoom uses the word app to refer to the application downloaded on the computer as well. So my warning about the breakout rooms only referred to if your students, when they click on a Zoom link, they're usually prompted to open the meeting in Zoom, meaning the application's downloaded on their computer. There's an extra step that they can take if they hit cancel. Like they'd have to hit cancel to the normal option to open, and then they'd also have to additionally click on a button on the web page that says click here to open in browser. So like there's a lot of extra steps they have to go through to not be in the app. And so I think that was kind of just clarification on my, because I think that's when it started, was when I mentioned the app in the breakout rooms. So that's what I meant by the app in that case. That's the language Zoom uses, sorry.
Oh, that's great, that's good.
And then I didn't get a chance to answer Ronnie's question in the chat yet. He said, can you get the recording if you go into breakout rooms?
Now, the host cannot record the breakout rooms, but I do know that participants within the breakout rooms, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, can initiate a recording. And,
You're correct.
And then you would have to get the participants to share that recording to the host. But unfortunately, only the main session is going to be able to be recorded by the host. So you might, designate a leader in each breakout room to be in charge of, recording and sharing that recording. I mean, there could be some follow-up and communication to kind of set that up if that's what you're, wanting to do. All right. Were there any more questions before I switch over? Talk about recordings and recording layouts. No? All right, moving on.
Not from the chat.
Does anybody want to unmute and ask a question right now?
Well, mine's not exactly on the break rooms. Mine's with the view of everyone, because there's actually, I don't know how many, 21 participants, right? Is it possible to see all of the participants? Because for today I actually had like 27 and I couldn't see them all. I had to go to another page if I wanted to see everybody. Is there any way I can get to see everyone at once?
Unfortunately, we get those little Brady Bunch squares as people are joining our meeting. And once we run out of space, it automatically takes it to another page. And there's nothing we can really do in our settings to like tell Zoom to make the thumbnails smaller.
So
oh, you're fine. You're fine. So there's no way to tell Zoom to make the thumbnails smaller to make more squares fit on one page. You're going to have to flip through the gallery view, which is where you see all those squares. That's the gallery view.
Okay, and then is there any way I could actually use my laptop plus the one I borrowed from the school?
For Zoom?
For Zoom. Can I use 2 laptops so I can have 2 screens, or like at least 2 monitors? So
you can set it up, but you're still gonna have to thumb through. It's not gonna divide up between 2 screens.
Oh, it won't. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that.
What I've done before is like you can, if you're in full screen mode and you click on the participants, it pops up as a window, and you could put that, you can expand that window so that you can see more of the names of the people that are in your session. Does that make sense?
So
you can mess around with the participant list is all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
When you're in full screen mode, it's a pop-up window that you can move around your screen, and you can like elongate it so that you can see more participants.
Okay.
And you can do the same thing with the chat.
The chat as well.
So it would all be on one screen.
Oh.
I mean, unless you have IT help you make your laptop into an extended screen, but that takes, that would take a lot of steps and a lot of IT to help you do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Documentation and all that, but
okay.
That's an IT question.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So we're going to switch over to the recording layouts for Zoom. Now, this is something that can only really be accessed in alamo.zoom. you can't see these settings anywhere else. So when you go to your settings, you are able to choose how you want to record your meeting. So I'm going to play this little video for you that's going to walk you through these options that are available to you.
The purpose of this video is to cover the recording options that are available for you in a Zoom meeting. So I will log on to alamo.zoom.us. I will then sign in, and here on this button right here is recordings. Once I've clicked this button, I will then select settings. Here are the settings that are available to me whenever I record a Zoom meeting. Anyone who is speaking in the Zoom meeting will then be recorded. You cannot record anyone who was just participating. You can only record anyone who is speaking. This also includes any items that were shared in the shared screen. The purpose of this video is to cover the recording options that are available for you in a Zoom meeting. So I will log on to alamo.zoom.us. I will then sign in, and here on this button right here is recordings. Once I've clicked this button, I will then select settings. Here are the settings that are available to me whenever I record a Zoom meeting. Anyone who is speaking in the Zoom meeting will then be recorded. You cannot record anyone who was just participating. You can only record anyone who is speaking. This also includes any items that were shared in the shared screen. So this is really great if you are trying to record everyone's video all at the same time. And this also includes any shared screen items. So this is very useful if you are trying to record, say, all your students demonstrating a lab all at the same time. Another option is to record the active speaker, gallery view, and shared screen separately. So what this means is that if you make this selection, when you view your recordings, you are going to see 3 different recordings. You're also able to record just the audio. So say if you don't need to have any visual recordings in the Zoom meeting, you just want an audio MP3 to play back, that's a selection you would want to choose. You can also click to save chat messages from the meeting/webinar. So this is really helpful as well if you needed to review any questions that you ran out of time and you weren't able to answer. So if you save the chat messages, you can always go back, see which student asked you the questions, and then reply to them later in Canvas. Once you've made your selections, you would then click Save.
So that was just a quick little video there for you. And what I have now is actually I broke down the definition of each one of those selections that are available to you. So that way you can go through this PDF and see what it means. What does active speaker mean? Well, what is gallery view? And so that way you have a really good idea on how you want your Zoom recordings to reflect. What is it that you're trying to get out of the recording? And right now I have active speaker with shared screen as my selection for my recordings. And if you can at any time go back and change this, but just keep in mind that these need to be selected before the Zoom meeting starts. Otherwise, there's no way for you to go in the middle of a Zoom meeting and then put that in. It's not going to reflect until you initiate a new Zoom meeting. So make sure that you made your selections and save them before the Zoom meeting begins. So that way you can see those recordings. And again, if you haven't done so, please download that PDF and save it. And this just tells you the definition of each one. Now, the second part of this is Zoom reports. And this is probably my favorite feature. Zoom reports can be retrieved for the last 12 months with a search range of up to 1 month at a time. And that's a really great thing that's available to you. So there's two things that you can pull from a Zoom meeting. The first one is usage. And this gives you a list of almost like an attendance roster. It gives you a list of names and their emails. It also gives you the time frame of when they joined the Zoom meeting and when they left the Zoom meeting. So if you're telling students that you're going to be using the Zoom meeting to take attendance, what you would do is after the Zoom meeting has ended, you would go and you would pull those reports, and it exports into an Excel. And you can clearly see, like, okay, this little Johnny Jr. joined 20 minutes in the meeting and then he only stayed on for 10 minutes. That's not really, you know, meeting my criteria of attendance here. So that really gives you that really nice breakdown. And again, it just downloads for you in a nice export. The other thing that you can pull are meeting reports, which allow you to search for the poll results. Now, I'm going to show you a YouTube clip of me pulling both of these information. And unfortunately, because I've never created a webinar and because I've never created a Zoom poll, I actually don't have any data that's going to be pulled from the meeting section in this YouTube clip, just to give you guys a heads up.
The purpose of this video is to demonstrate how you can pull reports from any of your Zoom meetings. First, you need to log on to your alamo.zoom.us. You will then sign in, and here you have the option to select reports. You have two types of reports to pull from. The first one is a usage reports. So this can come in handy if you're trying to track who was participating in your Zoom meeting. So here I'm going to make my selections, and I want to focus on this month in particular. And here it brings up all the different meetings that had occurred between those time periods. And then here to the far right, it gives you a list of participants. So if I click on the number of participants, what it will do is it will bring in a list of names of those who participated. It tells you what time they joined and what time they left, and then it gives a duration of minutes. I could then also export this information, and it goes into an Excel. Another kind of report that you can view is registration reports and poll reports for meetings. Because I've never required anyone to register for any of my meetings, and because I've never created any polls for any of my meetings, this information is not going to be found. There will be no data for me to view. But if you find that you have created polls from previous meetings, you can then find that information by selecting those dates to search through. So these are the two reports that are available to you whenever you log on to your Alamo Zoom. Make my selections.
Now, before I kind of exit out, I want to point out that when you are picking the time frames here, keep in mind that you're pulling time frames of when meetings have occurred, okay? So if you have, you know, a total of 5 different meetings because you're teaching 5 different, you know, Canvas courses, or, you know, you have certain meetings set up, what it's going to do, it's going to say, it's going to focus from this time to this time, and it's going to tell you these are all the meetings that occurred between those time periods. So that's the only way it kind of filters. It doesn't filter if you click on one meeting and pull the reports just from, you know, my meeting that I made for Canvas support. It doesn't do it that way. What it does, it tells me all the meetings that occurred between my time periods that were selected. And it only goes as 1 month at a time, 1 month at a time. So if I wanted to focus on pulling my rosters for my convocation, I would say I'm gonna click on just for the month of August, and then for the month of August, I will see only the Zoom meetings that occurred for that month of August. So I just wanted to clarify that before I continued on. So real quick before we're going to be doing a little recap here, I'm just going to open the floor if you want to, unmute yourselves and use this time to kind of ask any questions. We are at the end of our presentation. So if you have any, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Mallory, Caroline's asking about the difference between media site and YouTube. Can you address those two? I told her that I think YouTube is much easier to use. Media site's kind of clunky and there's a lot of steps involved and the upload takes a long time. So,
Yes,
but at the same time, media site is what's been provided up to us by the district. And so that's what Mallory is supposed to be, supporting rather than walking you through the steps of YouTube. Also, just totally as an aside, I noticed on this slide, your email address is wrong.
Oh, it is.
I saw that when I was talking. So maybe go ahead, I'll mute now.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm like, I have the thumbnails, so I needed to move. Oh yes, it is wrong. How funny. Yes, media site is very clunky. I do have a YouTube video that I created that walks how to upload in media site. It does take a very long time. I think I uploaded like a 7-minute Zoom session just to play around, and I think it took close to an hour, and it was just 7 minutes. But we're trying to promote the use of media site.